congrats on the new deal. We got a little bit stressed out when the trade deadline passed. You were not traded, which was a relief. And then a lot of time went by between that and a new contract. So people started getting itchy, but glad to see you're back here. What was what made you want to stay in Chicago?
I mean, from the moment we got there, my wife and I, we loved it. Not even including the hockey, the city, the people, just the way our, lives set up. We had our first child there. It was, we liked a lot about it. And, hockey is just the cherry on top. It's a great organization with a lot of history and, a bright future that I really wanted to be a part of. And, my mindset never really changed with that. And I'm happy to be a part of it.
When you get through, the season you had this year, career year, you're going into the off season, needing a new deal. How much? I know you kind of talked about it on Tuesday, but how much temptation really was there for you to see like what value could I have out there on the free agent market? And from our seats here on the studio, it seemed like more than $4 million per year may have been in your future, but how hard was it to maybe let that go and decide to come back to Chicago for what I think I would say was maybe less money than what others would have projected?
Yeah, no, obviously, for me, it was a lot, it was not an easy decision. Like I said, I always wanted to be in Chicago, but at the end of the season, you have time to reflect, and obviously with the new child, you have to support the family and all that stuff. But for me, we were able to get something done, and like I said, I wanted to be in Chicago, and it was nerve-wracking at times, and you see the rumors of how oh, if I stayed, to free agency and played that card, but it's really not that easy just to risk everything, the relationships that I've made in Chicago, the experiences I've got and risk that and on top of you never know how the free agent market's going to go. So for me, I was getting certainty there and certainty with the team that I know the situation and I love the situation. So for me, it's like I couldn't really lose in that sense where I wanted to be in Chicago and I was lucky enough to end up being back here.
Oh, you've got a firsthand view of the youth movement that's happening here, and I think I don't want to speak for you, but I would imagine that you see the way last season ended with Renzel and Levshinov and Nazar and more and everybody coming up and contributing. Did that sort of add to your decision to stay because you can sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel here?
Yeah, absolutely. And you just see the depth in the internal competition. For me, it's like there's a bunch of guys that I'll probably have the chance to play with that, are hungry and, determined to make their impact. And I think, there's a bright future, obviously, but, we're all going to be competing and that's going to make the team better. And to be a part of that is super exciting. And, being around all those young guys all the time keeps me young too. So, and I'm not even that old, but I do feel like a really old guy around all those guys. So it's definitely fun.
Yeah, I mean we've had Alex Vlasic on the show a number of times this season, and even he just turned 24, and it seems like he's a veteran amongst a lot of the young guys that are joining the team. What is that locker room atmosphere like, and how did that shift as the season went on? Because you guys went from the start of the year being one of the, I think it was like the five oldest rosters in the NHL, and then by the end of the season you were one of the five youngest. How did that shift over the season?
To be honest with you, it didn't feel like, we were like losing all that much experience. We had guys that have been around still and we have the young guys and it's funny that you think the young guys actually end up being the sometimes the loudest guys in the locker room and you think that the youngest guys would be the quietest but they're kind of the loudest so when you have just a few in there the room feels really young and light and when you multiply that by a couple it really turns up so it's been a lot of fun.
Have you had any conversations with Jeff Blashel since he was hired and you've resigned?
Yeah, yeah, we've had a phone call and, I was just getting to know him. We were both, we haven't, met before or never had the privilege of playing for him, but fortunately, we did talk and, he seemed like a guy that was super excited about the opportunity and something that, how I can help the team. We talked a lot about a lot of different things, family life and family history and that kind of stuff. But, it was really exciting to hear how excited he was to be a part of this team and about the future and, helping us grow. And that definitely made me more excited about, joining here.
Well, we had him on the show the day after the press conference, and he talked to us about what he calls winning hockey, and the way you have to play, like stopping on pucks, making sure you're winning those board battles, hustling back. It seems like he's pretty much describing Ryan Donato when he talks about winning hockey. So I think you feel like it's going to be a good fit for you and Blashel based on what you've heard from him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a guy that, respects guys that, work hard and are detail oriented. And, that's something that as a young guy, I had to work on my own game and, having that experience that I had with, previous coaches, it's a tough lesson, but it's a lesson you need to learn to be able to, play and stay in this league. And he's definitely a guy that, wants to help these young guys develop. And for me to see that, he rewards guys for, their work ethic and compete, that definitely excites me. And that's, one of the major reasons why I ultimately wanted to come back to Chicago.
Kyle Davidson's been a little bit active leading up to the draft and free agency. Made a trade to get former teammate of yours, Andre Burkovski, to bring into the organization. What's the vibe on him as he comes to the team, and what can Blackhawks fans expect?
I love Berkey. He's a very funny guy. Might be quiet with the media a little bit, but he's, very funny, nice, very approachable veteran guy. Obviously, he's been on winning teams before and he's had a lot of success in the league. And he's a guy that, he's super competitive and, very, very skilled and talented. So, if he gets to, playing his A game, which I've heard that that's what he wants to get to, he's going to be, a very impactful player for the team. And, I think he's going to be, coming in right away, very hungry. And I think he's just going to push everybody to compete harder. And I'm happy to have him here and as a teammate and as a, somebody to compete with.
Do you pay attention to all the offseason stuff, like the draft lead up and the free agency rumors, or you just kind of keep to yourself on those things?
I kind of keep to myself on those things. I follow, the trades and stuff that are, kind of right away out of nowhere, trades that you weren't expecting. But you know, I think when I was younger, I followed it a lot heavier, more often, I should say. And now it's that I get older, it's, it's every year. There's always stuff. There's always a circus going on. So I think if you get, too involved in that, watching too much of what's happens, you can kind of be consumed by it. So for me, you only get so much time in the off season to kind of reflect on the year you had or, your season or what you want to get better at. And, coming into the year, I don't really want to be thinking about, all the different rumors and everything going on. So I just kind of do my own thing and worry about, myself and then, hopefully helping the team when I come back.
Well, we asked Alex Vlasic, if you could add any kind of player to the team this offseason, what would it be? And we were thinking he would say power forward or defenseman, and he said Sam Bennett. He flat out said Sam Bennett. So if you want to say, if you were in Kyle Davidson's chair, what kind of player would you add? What do you think the team needs? And if you want to be specific with a name, go for it.
Geez, that's a hard pick to follow. I mean, he's a great player. Vlass has got his, he had that ready to go. I'm not sure if I'm thinking from the top of my head, top of the head. I it's hard to name one specific player. I mean, you could go with the, great players like the Barkovs and all that stuff, and those guys are obviously, ideal players to have on a team. But just for us, in considering, the market and all that stuff, just a guy that's going to be, a very consistent, goal scorer or, centerman that's, experienced and can push these young guys and, show the right way to win hockey games. And we have all the talent and speed and skill, but it is a hard league to win in. And I think having a guy that's, been around and done it before would be very helpful. But again, I'm not the GM, so I'm not a guy that can make those decisions. And if you gave me more time, maybe my answer might be completely different.